On Storyboard today, Bob Jeffrey on JWT's 150th anniversary, Standard Chartered's first global brand head and CMO, and the jurors of the Curious Advertising Awards. Hello and welcome to Storyboard. I'm Pavni Mittal. Advertising agency JWT has decided to embrace its roots. It will revert to its original name, the name of its founder, J. Walter Thompson, on 5th December when the WPP-owned agency turns 150. Storyboard editor Anant Rangaswami spoke with JWT's worldwide chairman and CEO, Bob Jeffrey, on the name change, the celebrations, and on the future of the agency business. Listen in.
Hello, Bob. Welcome to Storyboard.
Thank you for inviting me. A pleasure to be here.
To begin with, can you share the highlights of the year-long program of celebration?
Well, as you know, this is the 150th anniversary of JWT. We were founded in 1864. So it's a huge opportunity for us to really celebrate the JWT brand and what we're about. So we launched this program a few months ago for employees around the world with what I call a manifesto video on the theme of pioneering. And the whole theme of that was basically a challenge to JWT employees around the world, asking them, are they ready to pioneer? Coupled with that, we're launching what we call the Commodore Challenge throughout the entire JWT network. And again, that's an invitation and a competition to JWT employees around the world to really participate and come up with innovative ideas that are truly pioneering. And there's a whole prize structure around that. In addition to that, I think one highlight that I'm particularly proud of is that we will be announcing the Helen Reeser Scholarship. And just as a little bit of background, JWT actually appointed the first female creative director, and that was Helen Reeser in the early 20th century. And when you think about the opportunity with the ad industry, about how we can really motivate and inspire more women into the industry and actually more women into senior ranks, we thought of the scholarship as a terrific way to be launched around the 150th. So those are just some of the highlights. And obviously, the most important thing we want to do is celebrate with our clients. Because we've had these long-term relationships with clients, Unilever, over 100 years, for example, we want to acknowledge them because our success is because of them and the success they've had with their business and the work we've done for them.
What are those aspects of the celebration that we will experience in India?
We have so many markets and offices around the world, but India is one office. I should say one market we take huge pride in. And we were started in India in 1929. So if there's any market that is really engaging in these celebrations, it's going to be India. So for example, the Commodore Challenge is being translated at the local level. The leadership in India, Colvin Harris and his team, they actually have come up with some really cool ideas about what they're going to do to show pioneering and innovation. So it's really going to be translated at the local level with the Commodore Challenge. Again, going back to the scholarship and the details of that program were actually inspired by some of the female creative directors we have in India. And one of the, I think key pieces of input they gave us, globally was, this scholarship really needs to be focused on those cultures where there needs to be better opportunities for women to advance. So the scholarship will really be focused on the fast-growing and emerging markets. And again, that started in India.
Now, Bob, what are the 5 sort of unique stories from around the world that you will highlight in your celebration, if I had to ask you for 5 stories?
Well, I think, just to go through it, think about it. We've had Unilever over 100 years. We've had Ford, HSBC, Rolex, and Nestle over 60 years. So in each of those cases, what we're doing is we're actually celebrating, innovative ideas and pioneering work we've done for each and every one of those clients. So with every single client, especially the ones at the global level, we're highlighting the unique pieces of work that we've done for them globally. But what's also interesting is that, not only do we have those global clients in every market around the world for the most part, what's unique about India is we have some really amazing global clients there that we have nowhere else in the world. So, for example, one client in India that we take a lot of pride in is Nike. We've done a huge amount of work on Nike in India, and one of the pieces of work that we're really celebrating is this thematic piece of content called Make Every Yard Count. And what I love about that work is, while it's video and TV, it also reflects what's going on in the communications landscape now. Those are examples of what we'll be doing.
Okay, and getting back, other than Nike, any great India stories you can think of?
Well, I think that, I mean, for example, if I think about India, we've had this amazing relationship with Pepsi in India. And, we've been involved in really, establishing the Pepsi brand against so many of their different products across the board in India. So, I mean, I'd love to show you some of the work we've done on Pepsi, both historically and some of the new work. So that's an example. Tata Steel for close to 60 years. For example, we're also doing some interesting work with UTI Mutual Funds, Times of India.
Bob, as you get ready to hand over the baton at JWT, what are the biggest challenges that the industry faces? What is the advice you would give to any new CEO
I think
of an agency network?
The industry is facing huge challenges. And if you're a pessimist, you could be overwhelmed by these challenges. If you're an optimist, you could look at them as an incredible opportunity. And I see them as an incredible opportunity. And let me tell you why. There's no doubt that technology has had a major impact on the communications industry. It's had a major impact on every industry. And I see that as a liberating force for advertising agencies, because with all the technology, where everybody's forced to think differently, to work differently, but what it does is it really gives the agencies the power to unleash what they do best, which is the power of ideas that can build brands and the power of creativity that can now be expressed across so many different channels. And I think, as importantly, the advertising industry is going to be reinvented. It's no longer about what we think about with traditional brand communications, where it was some level of combination between rational values and emotional values. It's much more about what we call story doing. It's about behavior. It's about activation. It's about that one-on-one communication that you can now have with the consumer. So I think, my advice to any new CEO taking over is you absolutely have to immerse yourself in those changes. You have to embrace the implications of technology. And I think you have to lead your organizations into the future. I think you have to motivate and excite people to be pioneering, to be innovative, and in a competitive way to acknowledge, who are those other companies out there that are ahead of you, and don't be shy about taking the learning from them about how they've innovated and how you can adopt and reapply.
Right. And then I want to ask you, this personal, who during your career is the individual that you've developed the greatest amount of admiration for professionally?
I would say that I was very fortunate in my career. I started my career in an agency called Daldane Bernbach, and I worked there when Bill Bernbach was alive, and I actually worked on pieces of business that he was involved in. And Bill Bernbach was a very humble person, very everyday-like, but a creative genius. And he really sparked and motivated and built an entire agency around what at the time was a creative revolution on Madison Avenue. He was the one that innovated the idea of putting an art director and copywriter together. And Daldane Bernbach did work that built businesses. If you think about it, they launched Volkswagen in the U.S. market, which completely challenged the Detroit auto industry around a very iconoclastic idea, think small. And there are numerous examples of that. So he had a huge influence on me.
Right. And then to ask you, you're going to come full circle and go back to calling your company J. Walter Thompson. So what are your comments on that?
Well, first of all, as with the 150th anniversary, and we were thinking about, what were we going to do? And I spent a lot of time traveling around the world. And one obvious conclusion I reached was that when I talk to young people, and if you look at our industry, 60% of the people most likely are under 30, there was a huge appetite in the network for authenticity and history and heritage, which I think is interesting because you think about young people, they're so tech savvy and into digital, but they also want the authenticity. And without any prompting from me or other leaders in the company, a lot of young people were going back in the archives. They resurrected the owl and the lamp. They resurrected the original logo. They were making T-shirts with the original J. Walter Thompson name from 1864. And I think we reached the conclusion, now more than ever, why not bring back the original J. Walter Thompson name? No other agency has that name, obviously, but no other agency can claim they were at the birth of, in the invention of modern advertising. So for all those reasons, I mean, I think, and I know that, I mean, when we communicated this to people inside the agency, outside the agency, clients, former employees, Martin Searle, there was a huge amount of enthusiasm for this. So it actually has been, in some ways, the easiest thing we're doing this year.
Right. Thank you so much, Bob, and all the best for the 150.
And by the way, Anant, thank you very much for the tweet this morning. I saw that you mentioned a couple of former JWT employees that are members of a rock band that you're a fan of. So thank you.
We're going to take a short break here. When we return, meet Sanjeev Chaudhary, Standard Chartered's first global brand head and CMO.